Today the outline is we're gonna do the take 20 to attune. Then I'm gonna review the main points from last week, and then we're gonna do the empathy guessing game because we only did 3 out of 10, right? Yes. So we're gonna do that, and then I'm gonna talk about the wild world of psychotherapy. Okay? So let's just take 20 seconds to attune. Focus on your feelings. Maybe some of you have been practicing that over the week. I put a different type of feelings wheel here. There's many different types you can get on Google. This one has like themes, like, terror, and then fear, and then apprehension, or grief, sadness, so pensiveness. So they go from like more intense to less intense. So just take 20 seconds. You might want to put your hand on your heart, or take a deep breath, or do something to tune into yourself and your feelings. See if there's any feeling. Sometimes you can't feel a feeling, but maybe you feel a bodily sensation. Maybe you're feeling pain in your shoulder. Excuse me. So maybe you're feeling a pain somewhere. Maybe you're feeling hungry or a cramp. So then you can try to tie the feeling to that. Like maybe you're feeling uncomfortable physically, but that's also an emotion too. So just take a few seconds. Get in touch with the feeling. Take a deep breath, ground yourself into this Vedic psychology power hour. Okay? And now, just to yourself, express your feeling. I feel blank because blank. Right? Okay. And now I'm going to review just the 3 of the main points. We talked about so much, I know, in each lecture, but I just put out 3 that I thought were important ones. So remember Nightbirde, the video you guys heard of her singing, right? So that was about radical self-acceptance. So there's a lot to this concept, but I just put out a few points. One of them is we have to have awareness and acceptance of our own difficult thoughts and feelings. Also our positive ones, all of them. We want to be aware of them and accept them, embrace them all. And we want to embrace our nature too, so whatever that is, like, she's obviously a singer, but she embraced that fully, and that's why she was also so inspiring. She was authentic, very authentic, right? So we want to embrace our personality, our nature, difficult situations, difficult people. We want to kind of embrace it all. Okay? The second point that I pulled out from last week was this lack of insight. Remember the paddle ball that I was showing? Like, the guy hit himself in the face, but he's like, what is wrong with this person? This paddle ball. It's like, yeah, you threw it out and the ball hit you in the face, So this is the analogy for not seeing how our behavior upsets other people. That's what the paddle ball is. So a lack of insight there. And so introspection helps us get more self-awareness and get the insight we need to have to see how our behavior affects other people, right? And so compassion and empathy starts with introspection. Introspecting on your feelings, that's why every time in the class I do it first, introspecting on what your feelings are. They live in your heart, which is your chitta, which is the home of your inner child, right? And then you want to validate your feelings and nurture your inner child. That's not a really quick and easy thing to do, but I'm just making those points. You can research it and see how to do it. Validate your feelings and nurture your inner child, okay? So those are the 3 main points. Now we're going to do the empathy guessing game. I put a little magnifying glass there because I think that the cat has a heart. I think he looks empathetic there. I can't tell if he's like licking his friend or biting his neck, but maybe he's comforting him. Okay, so this is the 4th one. So you just look at those 4 feelings, take a guess, note it down if you have a paper because we're going to score it after. The first 3 we did, I'm thinking of those a couple classes ago. That's just warm up. That's warm up. So don't worry about those for this week, okay? I'm just gonna show you 7 for this week, and it's 4, but it's really number 1 for this week, okay? How is this person thinking or feeling? Is that person in a joking mood? Do you think they're feeling flustered? Desirous? Convinced? Go ahead and note it down. What do you think? Some of you did it last time, but it's been a couple weeks, so I'm just doing it again, okay? And let's see. Desirous. How many people got that one? Desirous. A lot of you guys. A lot of people. No. Krishna Das, what did you get?
I am convinced.
Convinced?
Yeah.
Okay. What about her eyes look convinced?
Yeah, because they are fixed and there is no expression in the...
We need the mic, just one sec.
Because the expression of the eyebrows and because they are fixed and kind of smiley, so it's like have something very clear.
Okay.
So I convinced was why.
Okay, that makes sense. Maybe she's convinced that she's desirous.
Yeah.
She knows what she wants. She wants you, right? Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to move to the next one. How about this one, you guys? Is this person joking? Do those eyes look like joking eyes? Insisting? Amused? Or relaxed? What do you think? Susan Sophie has her hand up. What do you think, Susan Sophie?
I think insisting.
Insisting. Okay, so what about those eyes make you think insisting?
Like a little bit of dangerous and very focused. This is my goal and I get it.
Okay, and a little dangerous. So different than this one, different than this. Right? So they're both kind of focused, but one's a desirous type of focus and the other one's a, you think, insisting type of focus. Okay. Malati, you had your hand up. Do you want to add anything to that or say something?
Yes, I agree. I find it insisting, and also he's not looking into the person's face, but he has his idea, his plan, and he's just staring into the blank and with this idea. You know, he sees more his idea than the other person.
That's very interesting. Okay. So he looks kind of like insisting or like determined. It's about him and his idea. He's not trying to connect. It doesn't look like he's looking at someone else, right? He's trying to connect. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Good. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Balaram. Mic is coming your way. 2 mics.
I agree with the insisting, but I wouldn't say amused, but he almost looks like he has a sly smile. Like over to the left side, there's a little bit of a curve upwards, almost like trying to convince or manipulate you.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So you think it's insisting?
I think it is, but in kind of like a sort of a smiley, manipulative way. Like I'm trying to like convince you of my point.
Okay.
Trying to win you over.
Okay. Let's see. You guys got it. Insisting. Good job. Did you want to say something, Vilas? No? Okay. How about this one? What is this person thinking or feeling? Irritated? Sarcastic? Worried? Friendly? What do you think of those eyes? Anyone want to talk? What do you think? What did you say, Kamala?
Sarcastic.
You think sarcastic? Let's hear why.
Because he's looking like that, and then he makes kind of,
He's averting his eyes. He's kind of looking.
Yeah, he's not really agreeing in something, and he's kind of somehow not looking straight, looking on the side, and kind of maybe he witnessed something that he doesn't like or
Okay.
dislike.
Vilas? Let's hear what Vilas has to say.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think I read it as irritated, because when I'm sarcastic, I criticize someone, right? And I think I look straight at them and be like really mean and hurtful.
Interesting.
But when I'm irritated, I more like look to the side, like there.
That's very interesting. That's a subtle point. Okay. Anyone want to respond to Vilas? Rati?
I think worried. Because
Okay. Wait, get the mic. We got to hear it so everybody can hear. I see you, Badra. You're next.
To me, the eyes look worried.
Okay.
It looks like he's looking inside his mind, that the eyes are not really focused on a point anywhere outside, but the gaze is actually internal into something that's churning inside.
Oh.
That's how I worry.
That's
when
very
I'm worried.
insightful. Yeah. So looking up, like something's bothering
Yeah,
him, maybe
like-
anxious or worried.
The looking upwards
Yeah.
to the side, look is like inward.
Okay, one sec, Gorgie, and I'm going to give Bhadra a chance. She's had her hand up since the beginning, and then I'll come back to you, and also you. Bhadra, your turn.
Thank you, Joshika. Hari
Yes.
Bol.
Hari
Yeah,
Bol.
I think I agree. I think he is worried. The way he is looking is like he's thinking of something that is really, the eyes to the left is like he is thinking of something that is worried him a lot. And then there's also the eyebrows are like kind of like upside down from the center to the sides. It's like the central part is completely like contracted, and also the how do you say this? The black things that is inside the eye,
Pupil?
the iris is completely dilated. So that means that there is a very intense emotion there.
Good analysis, very specific. So far
Yeah.
out of the group, we've heard sarcastic, worried, and irritated. Does anybody in the group think friendly? Just a show of hands. Does anybody think these are friendly eyes? Like out of all the four, the strongest one is friendly? No. Okay. So let's go to Gaura Jivan, and then we'll wrap back around to you.
Yeah, I see it as worried, but for external reasons, not for internal reasons. Like that movie, The Birds, where like the people are getting attacked by birds. It looks like something's like a bird is about to like fly down and like pluck his eyes out or something.
Interesting. Okay,
He's
so how would
looking
his,
at the
how,
thing
if there,
that's about
if, just
to-
imagine there wasn't a bird and he was worried for an internal reason, then how would his eyes look?
I don't know. Probably somewhat similar, but yeah.
But it looks like he's focusing on something.
I mean, to
Yeah.
me, it looks like he's looking at something
So-
that's about to do something. to
Okay.
him. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. You guys are such good observers. Okay, your turn. What do you think?
So I think it's irritated because when person irritated, he or she like steps back and look like from the side, and also he irritated and he somehow is trying to protect from the person with whom he is not he doesn't want to communicate. So I see this move aside, this look, and the desire to stop this conversation, to leave.
Interesting.
This space, something like that.
Interesting. So you're seeing his eyes, but you're imagining that his whole body would look a certain way, like
Yes.
trying to go like that. Interesting. Very interesting. Should we have a vote before we see the answer? How many people think worried? A lot in the room. How many online? Malati, Susan, Sophie, 2, maybe 5, 4 or 5 online, and almost this whole room. So now, how about the irritated? 1, 2, 3. Actually, it's like half and half in this room. And online, how many? 1? Oh, you tell me online, Vilas. Okay, and then sarcastic? 1. 1. And friendly?
None.
No, 0. Okay, let's see what it is. Worried. 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 So for the next one, remember, try to think of it could actually be a mix of these things, because it's not like you only just have one feeling at a time, right? But look for the one that you think is the strongest. Okay? How is this person thinking you're feeling? Aghast. Fantasizing. Impatient. Or alarmed? Fantasizing. Okay. You want to say why, Dowji? You have a mic? Is there a mic around for Dowji? Why is she fantasizing? He got one.
Little bit of a blurry look. Like not really looking outside. It's not like looking inside. A little blurry.
Like daydreaming, kind of?
Daydreaming, yes.
Okay.
Fantasizing.
Okay.
She's seeing the most handsome, eligible bachelor, and she's thinking, yes.
Okay. Vilas looks like he agrees. No. Okay. Anyone else? Susan, Sophie, what do you think?
I also agree with Dauji, and I think she's in her own film, in her inner film.
In her own film?
Yes.
Feelings. Okay.
Yeah.
She's in her head daydreaming about something.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so we've got 2 people for fantasizing. Does anybody think it's something else? Does she look impatient? Impatient? Impatient. What about, okay, where's the mic for Kamala? Let's hear why you think impatient, Kamala.
Because she's also kind of waiting for something which is not really happening. It's like, when is going to happen?
Where's my handsome eligible bachelor? Okay, that makes sense. These 2 could go together. Anyone else? Oh, okay. One more over there. Mike coming your way.
I think impatient, because she's like, why is he so slow or something like that? It's like, oh, he's taking forever.
Good. I think you could convince some people in the room for that one. How about your brother? What do you think? You agree with her?
It's definitely fantasizing.
Oh.
Because it's like she's looking into the distance.
Okay.
Like it's something that's going to happen or she wants to happen.
Okay.
It's definitely fantasizing.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting. And Mom or Dad, do you guys want to weigh in? No? Okay, Dad?
I kind of think it could be aghast. There's just something about the expression with the raised eyebrows. Where there was a politician in New Zealand who used to paint her eyebrows on, and they were always raised, so she always looked like a bit, alarmed or aghast. So she almost has a look like, oh my God, what is that person doing?
Okay. Good. Anyone else want to weigh in before we see? Let's see. Fantasizing, brother's right. But it doesn't mean she might not have been impatiently fantasizing, right? If we interviewed her, we could find out. Okay, how about this one? Apologetic? Is that those friendly looking eyes? Uneasy? Or dispirited? So he's like disheartened about something. What do you think? Apologetic? Friendly? Uneasy? Or dispirited? Which one? You get your mic? Where's the mic?
So for me it seems friendly because his eyes and the face expression are very open, very attentive.
Okay.
He open to conversation and with some warmness I feel in the eyes. So he is very interested in the person with whom he is conversing.
Okay. So if you could imagine you could see the whole face, how would the rest of his face look? What would his mouth be?
I would say this smile.
He'd be smiling.
Yeah, he's smiling.
Okay.
He's smiling, just reacting on something in conversation.
Okay. What do you guys think? Does anybody agree with that one? Hold on. You want to agree or disagree with that?
Disagree.
Okay, Dauji disagrees.
Apologetic.
Why?
Looks defensive.
What about him looks defensive?
The way his eyes are pulled in, I can't really say, but it looks like defensive to me. Apologetic.
So definitely not friendly?
No.
How would those eyes look if he was friendly, do you think?
No, it doesn't look friendly to me.
How would they look if they were friendly? What would be different?
Oh, they would be open.
Okay.
They're not open. They're like scrunched like this.
Okay. So that's a sign to you that it's not friendly.
Yes.
Okay, good. Malati, what do you see?
It seems to me that he's raising an eyebrow, and that would indicate that he's uneasy about something. There's something which is a little bit like, it's a little surprising to him, but he's not fully, this one eyebrow only. That means there's something which is slightly disturbing. He's feeling uneasy about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like from the corner of his eyes. The eyes are not even, and I think this is a sign of, this is not friendly.
Very good. That's very subtle, right? What Malati is saying? You see that? She caught the eyebrow, how one's different than the other one. And that looks uneasy, right? If you're like, I'm not sure. I don't know if some people can't make their eyebrows go like that, but if you can, it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm not sure. This. Yeah. Good, Malati. Okay, anyone else? We want to weigh in on what you think. What do you think, Kamala? Have the mic, and Gora Jivana, you have a mic over there? Okay.
Is apologetic and defensive, are those really like synonymous?
I don't know, but we're going with apologetic.
Yeah, I just had a general question.
I don't know. I didn't make this survey up, so I'm just going with what they have.
It was like a question about like those, like feeling apologetic and feeling defensive. Like you can feel those at the same. If you can actually truly be apologetic while being defensive.
Oh.
I was wondering if
on that,
if those are really synonymous.
I don't know.
It was being used interchangeably.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just kind of opening it up. I'm not like lecturing now. I'm just doing a different mode of you guys. You guys are the experts. Okay, anything else? Uneasy. Malati got it. Malati got it. Good one. I think the eyebrow is the giveaway. Got to pay attention to those eyebrows. Okay, how is this person thinking or feeling? Despondent, kind of like discouraged, relieved, shy, or excited? This is hard. Discouraged. So Kamala says discouraged. You want to say why, Kamala?
Looks like, oh, what happened here? Something, kind of out of my control, and I didn't expect that, and I feel bad about it, and something.
Okay, and you can tell that by what specifically are you seeing?
By squeezing the eye like this, and kind of
squishing his eyes, right? Because earlier Daoji was saying if you're friendly, they'd be open, right? And you're seeing that his eyes are squished.
Like this, and then also
Squinting.
And Squint. He is also contracted here. So.
Okay. Yep. Good, Kamala. Anyone else? Does anybody think he looks shy or relieved? Yes?
No, I also think discouraged, despondent, and his face expression is like so shows that he's in a tense. He's intense, and in his eyes there is a despair. So he's intense, and he didn't see the decision. He didn't see the way out for him.
Oh.
And this tension, it's on peak.
Yeah.
So discouraged.
Yeah, discouraged. Okay, good. Anyone else? All right, let's see. You got it. Good job. You read his mind. Okay, last but not least. How about this person? Annoyed, hostile, horrified, or preoccupied? Annoyed. Okay, Krishna Das?
Yeah, the last time I was marking like annoyed, but right now that I see her eyes, is kind of a hostile also. So I think these two are very close.
Okay.
And, but it's somewhere there. But before I mark annoyed, because I feel like when you respond to someone, the eyebrows are open and it's fixed in eyebrows with whomever is talking, So
don't annoy Daoji.
Yeah.
Annoyed.
Daoji's annoyed.
Daoji's annoyed.
Daoji's annoyed because he didn't pronounce eyebrows right. Okay, so you think hostile. Okay. Horrified? Okay, you want to give the mic to Kamala? Are people writing things here? Just looking outside? Are people writing what their answers are as well here? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you...
Ladali also raised her hand, so she wants to say.
Okay. Okay, Ladali, what do you think?
I think she's preoccupied, it seems to me.
Okay.
As if what's going on here, as if she's thinking like this, because the look is not as hostile to me as it may seem, not horrified at all, and annoyed, it's not a harsh look. So to me, it's just preoccupied. What's going on? I try to understand what's going on.
So it doesn't look like she's hostile, which would be more angry, and annoyed would also be along those lines, right? And then horrified would be like scared. That would be a different look. But then preoccupied, you're saying it looks like what's going on. So maybe she's distracted. That's why she's kind of looking away. She's distracted by something. Is that what you're saying, Ladali?
Yes.
Okay.
There is still something soft in her eyes.
Yes. Very good. So curious. So the eyes are more open than how they'd be if she's annoyed or angry or horrified or hostile. Okay. Good insight. Oh, we got a lot of hands over here. Go ahead, pass it around. You have one you want to say or no? Yeah. Okay.
So you know, in the several classes ago, so I marked it as hostile, but now I'm for preoccupied because now I feel that she doesn't have much tension in her eyes, in her facial expression for annoying, for hostile or horrified mode. Right. So, and he just thinking about something, and he is looking inside herself. If you see her eyes like they are open, they are looking at something, but they are absent. There is no conscious in them. She is in her own problems inside, but they are not too strong to be hostile, annoyed, or horrified.
Good. Jaya is nodding her head back there. You agree? Yeah, Jaya agrees with that one. Preoccupied, right?
Yes, I had preoccupied, yes. Yeah. I don't see any hostility or horrification, nothing else, yes.
Because the eyes are also kind of soft, right? She's not, or is there something else you see?
Yes, it's like she's not, she may be at some event, but her attention is within. She's preoccupied with something else.
Okay, good.
Not really aware of what is going on at that party or something.
Interesting. That's a good insight. Yeah, maybe she's at an event because she looks like she has some eye makeup on, you know, so she might be out somewhere, but she's preoccupied. Good. And the eyes are soft, what Ladali said. Very good. So does anybody, okay, yes.
I also think it's preoccupied.
Okay.
Because if you're like talking to her, she's like looking off to the side, like she's thinking of something else.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good point. Right? Because if you're talking to someone like that and they're looking away, she's probably not hostile or horrified, right? Because her eyes are still soft. So she's maybe thinking of something in her head or maybe she sees something, but she's not. These other ones seem too intense, right? Horrified, annoyed, hostile. Right? This is more a softer feeling. Good. Good insight. Anybody else want to share? Sister? You agree with your brother? Yeah. Ooh, they're on the same page. Let's not rock that boat. Good. Anyone else? Let's see. Oh, sorry. Tanmay. I already pressed the answer, but you can speak.
Yeah, we were just exchanging messages. It's interesting to me, this exercise is sort of biases the perceptions of people based on the words, because you're forced to choose from these words, right? So, if, for example, if I had replaced preoccupied here with looking out the window, you know, or something that's not suggestive of an emotion, most people would have gone for that. I think so. What happens is that based on the examples offered, you start to. I was trying to say this in the chat as well. In the previous one, where you had the skewed eyebrow gentleman. No, this one before that. This one. Actually, to me, this looks like a scheming, calculating look. You know, he's thinking of what his next move is going to be. But the problem is that we're forced to sort of pick from these, and then we have to pick the one that matches the most. And then we start to convince ourselves that, yeah, it looks like it's something. Very interesting.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's an interesting exercise. I can tell you guys more about it another time, but it comes from a very well-used survey. These are all their pictures and their words. So it's like been used for a lot of years and tested. But anyway, it's a much bigger, so I just pulled off 10 pictures, so it's not like conclusive, because I'm going to give you some scoring thing, but just as an idea. So you can do like a self-assessment, right? So this is one way to assess your level of cognitive empathy, but not really, because I only did 10. I think there's a lot more in the test, and we just kind of did it in a group, but it's one way to kind of just see your capacity to understand and recognize other people's feelings. But interestingly, the way that they give the score, I'll show you here, is you get 10 points for every answer you got correct. So because I only did 7 today, not the other 3, I'm just going to say, like, out of the 7 questions, the highest you could get today would be 70, right? If you got all 7 correct. So you can add yours up and see, like, what your score is. And then if you got, the closer you got to 70 points, the less, instead of saying the less or the better you are with cognitive empathy, the way they word it is the less antisocial behavior you have. I'm like, okay. And the closer you got to 0 is the more antisocial behavior you'll have. And I'll probably talk about this at another time, but antisocial personality disorder, you might think it's someone who's going to, like, murder you, but it's actually not. There's a lot of people who have it and don't realize they have it. But it's not as bad as you think. Like, on the spectrum of it, there's a lot of people who, just aren't able to, they don't have empathy, basically. They have very low empathy, or they have very high cognitive empathy, and it's considered antisocial personality disorder. So I'm not, it's a big topic, I won't get into it now, but my point is that when you think antisocial, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to kill somebody. There's a lot of people who are antisocial who just can't pick up on feelings. So that'll be another topic for another time. But anyway, you'll have these slides you can go over later in more detail, because I want to get into this now, the wild world of psychotherapy. So good job. I'm going to switch gears. That was fun playing that game. I'll try to do also more interactive exercises, and I think it's really helpful to practice, what we're teaching, what we're learning. So the wild world of psychotherapy. I want to start with all the reasons why people don't want to see a psychotherapist. Instead of trying to convince you that why you should go to one, how about all the reasons why you don't want to go? Because I hear this a lot with my clients too. So one of the, here's like just a brain dump of a lot of things I've heard. I can take care of my issues by myself. Like, I don't need a therapist, I can take care of my issues by myself. Or I'm a private person. I don't want to talk to a stranger. I'd rather talk to my family, my friends about my issues. Or just flat out, like, I'm scared or I'm nervous. Like, that's so awkward. Like, I'm going to go sit there and tell somebody I don't know, like, all my private information. That's so, I don't know, it's very uncomfortable for a lot of people, right? Especially if that's not your nature. Some people have the gift of the gab. They just want to, like, tell you everything. And some people are, like, very private, right? You don't want to go and talk about all your private stuff. There's another saying that a lot of people think, only crazy people go to psychologists or psychotherapists. I'm not crazy, Only really, really crazy people who should be, like, locked up, only those people go. Or, I don't have time. Or I don't want anyone to know. That's actually when COVID started happening and therapists were seeing people online more. It was so great for a lot of people, because then they didn't have to, like, drive into the parking lot of the hospital or of the therapist office. Because what if they bump into somebody they know and they're in a small town or something, So this was really helped a lot of people who that was the issue, they didn't want to go for the privacy thing. So because when you go online, you don't have to do that. It's more private in that way. I've already tried psychotherapy, it didn't work for me, So a lot of people will say, no, I did try at one point. I was, having a hard time in my life, and I tried, and the therapist was horrible. And I'm like, okay, what was horrible about the therapist? They just sat there for the whole hour, They just sat there and they're like, yeah, I hear you. That sounds really hard. I'm sorry. Do you want a Kleenex? So they didn't give me any direction. I didn't know, and then the hour passed and I don't feel any better. I just vented for an hour, so it's stupid, waste of time. I want them to tell me, here's what your problem is and here's what you need to do about it, So I've heard that a lot. And what good will talking do? What's the point? Especially if you're not like the talkative type. You're supposed to sit there for an hour and just talk, especially if the therapist is not really giving you feedback. it feels so awkward. It feels so invalidating, actually. If they're like, Or some therapists, I don't have a little thing to show you, but they'll take a clipboard and they're like, ooh, eyebrow. Oh God, Or they're just blank and they give you no feedback for the hour and they're writing all the notes and you're like, it feels so cold, and so you're already nervous going and then they're like making you feel like you are a crazy person when you're not, So that's one thing I hear a lot. Or here's one, I'll be seen as weak. I'll be seen as weak. A lot of times we build our whole life to be strong, and then I'm gonna have to go and talk about my weak points. And when I talk about my weak points, it makes me feel worse. Because I've been, trying my hardest not to look at that stuff, and I have to bring out my most painful things. It makes me feel weak, and I don't want to be seen as weak or feel weak. Yes?
I think you missed one in the middle. I can't afford. You want to speak about that?
Oh, sorry. I can't afford psychotherapy. That's a big one, right? That is a big one. It's funny because when you think about that, it is very expensive actually, if you're not used to that as like a normal thing in your culture, just say, But then if you look at what you do spend your money on, a lot of things you're spending the money on is because your mind isn't doing very good. You have to go out and eat at all these fancy dinners, or you have to spend money on anything you can basically to avoid the painful feelings. A lot of people, they'll end up going on all these fancy trips or dinners. I'm not talking about per se this group, but if you're living, where I used to live, that's where the money would be spent on luxuries, on clothes, on nice food, on vacations, on anything, massage, anything, but instead of seeing the therapist. So once you see the therapist and you get a relief from what the problem was, then you don't need to spend the money on all the other stuff, Anyway, that's a side thing. But pretend that you aren't doing any of those things. It's true. Therapy is expensive, and I think of it like an investment. Probably one of the most important investments of your life, because depending on how your mind is, it's going to affect all the decisions you make. And sometimes if your mind isn't doing well, you make very spontaneous decisions. You're like, oh shoot, why did I do that? But now you can't get out of it, or it's very costly to get out of it. So I think it's more of maybe an education around what is psychotherapy and the benefits of it and what you can get out of it if you invest and if you actually find the right one to help you, That's an important one. Okay. So here's reasons that people do go to therapy. Here's all the reasons they don't, now here's all the reasons they do. They don't want to go, but here's why they go. Relationship problems, right? They're fighting with somebody, with their mother, with their father, with their partner, with their mother-in-law. That's a fun one, right? So there's some sort of clashing going on. And so you can come talk to a therapist about that. And the therapist can also meet with you and that person. I do it, like I've told you guys, a lot of couples therapy, but I also do therapy for any two people not getting along. I'll teach them some communication skills. So that could be one thing. Career issues. I have a lot of people who are either stuck in their career or not quite sure where they want to go with it. So I help with that. A lot of therapists will help with all these things too. Grief. Maybe someone passed away, and you need to process that. If you're just feeling overwhelmed, you're just I have too much going on in my life, and I need a neutral person to talk through it. Because if I tell my wife, she's going to say do this. If I tell my buddies, they're going to say come golfing. If I tell, whoever I tell, they have a vested interest in what they want me to be doing. But a therapist is a neutral person who can listen and help you think through it in a way that they're not going to get anything out of it on the decision you make, If you're having anger outbursts, therapists help with anger management. They also help to figure out the root cause of the anger as well. If you're having some anxiety or something called intrusive thoughts, maybe you guys have heard of that and maybe not. Intrusive thoughts are when it's you're having some thought. Usually it's because the anxiety is pretty high. And you're it could be that, it's an unwanted thought. It's a scary thought. Sometimes it's also a visual. Sometimes new moms who have babies might have a thought of drowning their baby, and they're like, I can't, it's a thought that's very painful. But it's, and you try to control it not to do it. It's called an intrusive thought. Mood swings. Sometimes I'm feeling so high, I'm feeling so amazing, I'm feeling so great, I'm on top of the world, I don't need to sleep for 3 days, yes. And then you see that same person a few days later and they're like, I hate life. I hate everything. I just want to sleep for 5 days. So it's like, ooh, mood swings. Some people struggle with that. Phobias, lots of different types of phobias. And a phobia is okay if it's in your life, but if it's getting in the way of you doing something that you need to do in your life, if it's holding you back, then it's something you might want to talk to a therapist about. Suicidal ideations. That is something, if you're having thoughts about suicide, that's different than actually committing the act. So it's more common, actually, than people know to have suicidal thoughts from time to time. But there's different phases of that. And if you actually are having the thoughts and you've made a plan, then that's more serious, and that's when you want to call like a 1-800 crisis hotline and say, okay, I'm thinking and I have a plan, or deal with that. It's not like, I think I'll book with my therapist and talk to them next week. This is urgent, if you're having a thought and you want to act on a suicidal thought. But if you're having ideations and they're coming and going and they're just kind of thinking about them, that's something you can process with a therapist and figure out the root cause of that. Addictions, there's all types of addictions. Some of them are obvious ones that we know about, and there's some that are less obvious, and a therapist can help you figure that out and work with that. Eating disorders, some people overeat and then they purge. Some people starve themselves, they don't eat at all. There's many different types of eating disorders. Sexuality issues, like maybe bisexual or transgender, that type of thing. Sometimes I work with people who are trying to figure that out in their own life, and they're like, I can't talk about it with my wife because I'm not sure if I want to be with her. So that, you can talk about that type of issue with a therapist. Depression, isolating or socially withdrawn, that's something, that could be a sign of many different things. And that's good. That's a hard one if you're having that problem, because who wants to talk to a therapist if you're already isolating yourself and socially withdrawn, But just now, if you're not feeling like that, you could know that's one reason I could talk to a therapist in the future. Trauma, any kind of trauma, like the 9/11, what happened on 9/11? A lot of therapists were very busy for a long time with that. Or some trauma that happened a long time ago that you never processed, Trauma doesn't go away just because time's passed on. How Babaji always says, time does not heal all wounds, it only conceals them. So the samskaras are still there, alive and well. We've just covered them. So when I work with people individually and we get onto the samskara, the trauma, it could have happened when you were 5, but when we pull it up into your conscious mind and we start working on it, it's so heavy. All the same feelings come, even in the body, of what that trauma was. So that therapist can help with that. Panic attacks, sometimes people don't even know they had one. They'll tell me their symptoms. I'm like, that's a panic attack. Oh, I had a panic attack? I'm like, yeah, that's a panic attack. So panic attacks, stress. Stress is kind of like overwhelm and stress. How do I deal with my busy life or some big decision I have to make? I'm so stressed, I don't know what to do. Or like a life transition, Like maybe I have some people who have new children, or they're just getting married, or they're just getting divorced, or they're moving to a new country, or they're retiring, or they've just lost their spouse of 50 years, all different types of life transitions. Sometimes it's helpful to have someone to just talk through and process your life with you, Okay, now let's go back to why people don't want to go to a therapist. I had 10 reasons, here's 10 more. So, number 11 is my friend had a bad experience. So I was considering it, but then one of my friends told me about this horrible therapist, so I just can't go. I just can't get out of my head that after that's too traumatizing. Because therapists are not perfect. They're human beings too, And so there's lots of stories that you might hear, and then it's like, oh God, that's it's scary. If you're already scared of going, and then you hear something like the therapist had a love affair with one of the clients, or the therapist, like a client started sharing, and then the therapist starts sharing, and then they're like friends or something, and then the therapist got mad at the client because the client wasn't empathetic to them, or something. Like there's all these different types of things where it's like a bad boundary, or a therapist is smoking marijuana with the client, and I'm like, oh no. Like I've heard of so many stories that I'm like, oh, I'm sorry you had that experience, So it's people can have bad experiences with therapists. All I will say is that don't stay with that therapist, but don't give up, because there's many good therapists out there too, Okay, it'll take too long. That's when I hear all the time. When I have clients, they're like, how long is this going to take? I'm like, probably years. Years? I'm like, yep. Because how many years did it take for you to get into this situation? You had the whole childhood and all those samskaras were getting put into you, and then you acted on those samskaras for all these years, which fortifies the samskara. Every time you act on one of those negative, painful, hurtful samskaras, it makes it stronger and bigger, and really, it's like a concrete bridge by the time I'm seeing the person. So now we have to first of all realize you have that samskara, and then we have to work on it and try to disintegrate it. That takes a long time. So I would rather, just tell people that up front. And if they're like, well, this therapist said they can do it in 3 sessions, great. Please go there, I do a different kind of therapy. So what I'll say is there are some therapists who can do something called short-term therapy. It depends on your goal. Like just say you're grieving about something. Sometimes it's just about 3 months of therapy. It might be 12 sessions, and you'll feel better. You'll get a relief, And then if there's someone else who's like, I have a childhood trauma where I was sexually abused. That's not going to be 3 sessions or 12 sessions. That's very deep part of your person. It made your personality, So it just depends on what it is you want to work on. And sometimes you don't know. You have to go to the therapist and say, I don't know, something doesn't feel right. I'm depressed, but I can't figure out why. Once they figure it out and they give you the assessment, then they can tell you how long it will take to treat. And their best estimate. Here's another one. Okay, if I really need help, if I really need to see a psychologist, I will just take some medicine. Because I do not want to sit there every week and talk about the same stupid problem, So that's one. Some people say that. And other people, what, me? I don't have any problems. Some people say that. I oftentimes will see people who are married, and they're into therapy, but their spouse isn't. So they'll be like, my husband said he doesn't have any problems. And I'm like, okay. Then don't try to tell me he has problems. Just let him be. Just because you're into therapy doesn't mean he's into therapy. So some people say, well, I'm on a spiritual path and my spiritual practice is all I need. That's it. Therapy is for these material people, not me. That's a common one I've heard. And then here's one. I can do this energy healing or some other alternative medicine and not therapy, right? Because this energy healing is very popular and it's wonderful and it can be a complement to the therapy, but you can't do that on its own because it doesn't touch the samskara. In order to work on the samskara, the number one ingredient we need is your buddhi, your intelligence. You have to be, like when I'm doing it, I'm educating you and telling you this is what's happening. You have to be completely aware of what we're doing so you can heal that thing. So if you're just laying there and somebody's doing energy work and you're asleep or you're hypnotized, how is your buddhi working? It's not working. So this is a different type of thing. The deep level of your the foundation of those samskaras, you need to be completely aware of it and alert and very involved. So that's why this energy healing is in a different category, or alternative medicine. Here's one. I don't want anyone knowing my business, and that's true, right? Maybe you have a very, very big secret. And if you tell this therapist, what if that therapist tells somebody? What if the therapist spills the beans? And actually therapists are called, in the US at least, I can't speak for India, but in the US, they're called mandated reporters, which means they have to break the confidentiality if you tell them that you hurt a child. They have to call up the state and be like, all right, so-and-so and so-and-so was just in my office, and he told me that he sexually abused this child or hit this child or hurt the child. You have to report it. And then you have to tell the client, I'm sorry, I had to report that. Or if they're saying that they want to kill themselves, you have to say, okay, you're not safe right now. For your safety, I have to call and we have to hospitalize you. So so it's true. If you come and you've done something to hurt yourself or somebody else, or you're about to do that, we're going to have to tell people your business. Otherwise, the therapist should not be telling people your business. And they should tell you that up front in the paperwork, that they would have to break confidentiality in these cases, Some people say therapists are just in it for the money. They don't really care about me. They just want money. They just want the money. And then, I don't need one. I'm just going to ask my guru, especially in this world where if anybody has a guru, you just think, I'm going to go to my guru with my personal problems. He knows about samskaras. He knows about this and this. Why should I go to a therapist? I'll just go to him. And then another one is, it's too uncomfortable, it's too awkward, it's too painful. It's just so awkward sitting there with the therapist for an hour. I don't know. So I already touched on that one, okay? So let's hear what Babaji has to say about this. Babaji said, compassion is the cure for the disease of selfishness, the root of materialism. Therefore, compassion is the essence of religion. Out of ignorance, the conditioned living entity mistakes the subtle and gross bodies for the self. This gives rise to the self-centered view. You can see the the picture of the lady with the crown, right? Self-centered view. The more one gives up selfishness, the more one is compassionate, the more one's real personality manifests. Psychotherapy can be extremely helpful in this endeavor. I would suggest that everyone give it a try. Okay? So there's different types of psychology professionals. I'm just listing a few. There's many more, but just these are the ones you might hear most often. There's something called a psychiatrist, which you've probably all heard of. And so often people get that confused with a psychologist. So they're like, oh, you're a psychiatrist? I'm like, no. Psychiatrist is an MD doctor. That is a very big undertaking to become an MD, like you all know. So a psychiatrist is an MD. They can do a psychological evaluation of you, and they can prescribe medicines. That's very different than a psychologist. I'm a psychologist. I have a PhD, not an MD, which means I cannot, if anybody came to me, I can't be like, oh, you're anxious and you should take this medicine. That is not in my wheelhouse. That's unethical if I did that. I actually don't even talk about the medicine. I wouldn't be like, you should be on Zoloft and this milligram. I don't do that. I say, talk to a psychiatrist, That's out of my boundary of ethical practice. So as a psychologist, there's different types. So if you're a clinical psychologist, you can do assessments, which are long, 1 or 2 hour long or many question tests to assess really what's going on with that person. You can do assessments. And you can also do psychotherapy. And psychiatrists can also do psychotherapy too. They can. And then the next one is called a psychotherapist. So that's at the master's level. That's not a PhD. So if somebody says they're a psychotherapist, they have a master's. And in the US, you can be called a licensed psychotherapist. So I can't speak for India, and I know there's a lot of different countries where everyone's from, but in general, this is how it goes. Psychiatrist, MD doctor, psychologist, PhD, and then psychotherapist, MA. And the psychotherapist provides psychotherapy, okay? Then there's something called a clinical social worker in the US, and they also provide psychotherapy. They can do therapy as well. They have a little different angle because they know how to connect you to resources in the community, because they're more social. That's why they're social worker. They can connect you to resources where the psychotherapy, like for me, my training is, first I got my psychotherapy degree, then I became a licensed psychotherapist in the state of Florida. So I can do all the stuff that a psychotherapist does, and I'm still licensed there. Then I became a psychologist. So now I can do stuff that's psychologist, I have that range, and Vedic psychology, but I don't prescribe medicines, and I don't do the social work, I didn't get trained in that. In psychotherapy training, you go very deep into how to work one-on-one with the individual. And social work training, you get some of that, but you get a much broader, like how to work with the community, how to work in schools. It's much broader as a social worker. However, there's very good social workers who are therapists, who will see you for therapy. So in case you're considering trying to see a professional, I just wanted to give you this so you don't get confused, like which one should I be looking for, So I would say look for a psychotherapist. Sometimes they just call themselves a therapist. Sometimes they also call themselves a counselor. Okay, like a counselor, a psychotherapist, or a therapist. Okay, so the role of a psychotherapist, there's many things the psychotherapist does, but here's some of the ones that are the most common. They meet with the client regularly. Actually, this is the reason why I put that is, to me that was obvious, but to a lot of people it's not. So what happens is they'll come for one session for 1 hour, and they're like, okay, thank you. And I was like, I'll see you next week. They're like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how to describe what a good analogy is, but okay, it'd be like this. Imagine that you were going to run a marathon, and you'd go on one run one time, and you're going to run 26.2 miles. I mean, how many times do you have to go on a run to be ready to run a 26-mile race? Not once, for one time for half an hour, So seeing a psychotherapist is a regular part of your routine. It's a weekly thing you do for oftentimes years. So the psychotherapist, you meet regularly with the client, which usually is once a week. They listen to you. They've been trained and they have good listening skills. They provide empathy for you and support. They help see your side. So even if you had some really big blowout with your husband, and as the therapist you can see how they're kind of like in the wrong, but you're not going to smash your client and be like, you're in the wrong, you're so stupid, he's right. Therapists don't do that. And that's why it's nice to have a therapist, because sometimes nobody can hear your side. You feel so misunderstood. So the therapist will listen and hear you, and then give you some kind of question to reflect on, to help you see it yourself. That's kind of the compassionate way to do it. And then they provide confidentiality as well, which means like sometimes you think you want to talk to the family member or the friend, but also it can get hard with that because maybe they're not the best listener. Maybe they have their own motive. Maybe you can't trust them with your secret, something like that. But with a counselor or a therapist, you know, you don't have to know them from anybody else. You can just pick somebody off the internet and, you know, and they can be your person who's not in your circle, in your world at all. And so it feels really nice to know you have a person like that backing you up. They do something called psychoeducation. And psychoeducation is where they'll teach you about a concept. So that's what I'm doing in our weekly classes. You know, I'm always trying to bring some concept to teach related to, you know, different issues. So empathy's been the one, and I'm always bringing information and saying this is like this or this is like this related to psychology. The psychotherapist also helps to increase your self-awareness, and every therapist does it in a different way. I do it by giving homework and by asking like questions that make you think, I hope. I'm trying to ask questions to squeeze you a little, make you think of it in a different way. And that's how you increase your self-awareness. And then if you get it and you come back and you're like, yeah, that's true, I was lacking empathy. I'm like, okay, good, let's talk about that. But if you don't get it, I don't push too much because that means you're not ready to hear it, you know? So then I wait to see what happens the next week. What are you gonna bring the next week? Oh, it's the same issue again. You had a different thing with a different person. But so you have to be patient as a therapist. Sometimes it takes years before I can help the client really see what their issue is, because when I try, and if they push back and they don't see it or they get upset, then I'm not really providing a support for them. So sometimes the best support is to just hold the space for them to feel heard, you know? It's not that I have to have them get the answer right away. So part of this role of empathy is that, you know, my goal as a therapist is not for you to get it, to get the answer. My goal is to help you feel supported and seen. And when you feel like that, eventually you can get the answer yourself sometimes, you know? Also reframing negative thoughts to positive. So many times clients come in and they're feeling so negative about themselves or about someone else or about the world. And I'm like, is there some way that you could see that in a positive way? Could we reframe? The term is called a reframe, right? Could we reframe that? You know, like you're trashing yourself. I'm so horrible, I'm so stupid, I'm so bad, I should have done more, whatever the thing is you're...
The most fallen.
I'm the most fallen, yeah. Right? Some way you're trashing yourself or someone else. And I'll try to put it as a question. Is there some way to get you thinking, you know? And then tools and techniques to manage the mind. There's lots of tools and techniques that therapists teach to manage the mind. And also referrals. I'll have somebody come and I'll say, okay, that is, you know, we figured it out. You agree you have that problem. I agree you have that problem, but that's not my expertise. You know, so I would recommend you go to this person or look this thing up. We figured, because I don't want to keep somebody with me if I can't help them, you know, I can't give them everything they need. So traditional psychotherapy session is 1 hour. A lot of therapists, you'll see, if you're looking for one, they'll say that they do 50-minute hours. And it's like, what is a 50-minute hour? What it is they only see you for 50 minutes, but you pay for the full hour. And the last 10 minutes, they have to, you know, they get off the call and they go get a drink of water, or they go to the bathroom, or they type up some notes, or they make a call, or they call it in for the insurance. They're doing a little bit of like paperwork, but that's what it's called, a 50-minute hour. But anyway, it's about an hour. It's usually once a week. The payment, there's many ways you can pay. You can pay out of pocket. Your insurance can cover it depending on if you have insurance. There's something called like a health spending account. Sometimes people have that. You can do that. And there's some that's very inexpensive, like very, very inexpensive, or even free depending on benefits you have. And then the location, it could be in person, you know, or it could be on video. Some I'm seeing, I was researching because I'm going to show you guys some resources that I found, some options, and it's much more advanced than I realized. Some people are like doing it on the WhatsApp, texting, video chatting, so I was out of the loop on that, but now I see a little more. So finding a psychotherapist. So here's some resources. I'll send you guys these slides, but I researched for you to give you some if you're interested. So Psychology Today is a big one in the US. They have many different types of therapists, and it's kind of cool. Like you can click on the issue that you want to work on. So if you have like eating disorder, if you have some addiction, you can click on that, and you can click in the area you live, and it'll show all the ones. It has their websites, it has their phone numbers, it has the insurance they take. It's a very nice site. They also have lots of articles for free. So if you're not sure, you know, if you have a problem, you could even type that in and read about it. BetterHelp is another very nice one. It's a newer one that I hadn't heard of, but it has a lot of, you can check it out. It has a lot of good resources. Then there's something called online-therapy.com. That's the name of it. And they've gotten much quicker. You know, the old therapy, they're going to get back to you in a week, but now it's like, you know, book today. So this is nice because you don't have to wait and you don't have to go anywhere. You know, BetterHelp and online-therapy.com. Then I found some in India. I found, I think, 4. I found them 4 in India. So either you're living in India, so you can do it, or maybe you're living somewhere else, but you can't afford the prices of like the US, which is really expensive for therapy. Maybe you could do it because it's online therapy in India. So I found these 4. The prices were like, I think like 1,200 rupees for an hour, or like 600 rupees for half an hour. They have different amounts of times as well, and they have lots of different specialties. So I thought that was nice. This one's called Amaha Online Therapy, the Hope Network, Vandervala Foundation, free. That one's free. I found a free one. Vandervala Foundation gives free support. So you guys can look into these, see what you think, if anybody's interested, so you don't feel so overwhelmed that, okay, I want to see a therapist, but I have no idea how to do it. So at least you have a few choices that you can dig around and see what you can find through there. Then there's also something called group therapy. And some people are like, I don't want to like talk to somebody one-on-one, for whatever reason. I gave 20, so I'm sure you even have more, that you don't want to do that. But maybe you'd be willing to go to a group therapy. And if it's online, a lot of people go and they just put the camera off. So then you don't have to, if you're like, I know I have this issue, but I'm not ready to like show my face and I don't want to say anything, just put some name, Joe Schmo, leave your camera off and just sit there and listen. That's moving in the right direction. So there's many, many wonderful free therapy groups. One of them is called ACA, which they have many different groups free every week. And one of them, they work on inner child. They have Codependence Anonymous, so anybody who's codependent, they have a lot of wonderful resources for that. There's one called Grief Share, so if you're grieving over anything, that's a nice one. They have something called NAMI, which is I think it's the National Association of Mental Health Family Support Group. And the reason why I put this is, maybe you yourself aren't struggling with some mental issue. Like you don't feel like you need therapy, but maybe in your family somebody is. And that's a burden, right? If you have somebody in your life who has a mental health issue and you're always supporting them, that's very exhausting. There's even something called caregiver burden, caregiver burnout. So maybe that's something you'd want to join. Just how do I deal with the stress of having even a mother with Alzheimer's or something? Maybe it's not that they have schizophrenia, but they have something that's dragging you down, and being and talking to other people and getting support. So that's a nice one. There's a group for depression and bipolar support. Also pregnancy. I have a lot of clients over the years who have either they're pregnant and they're having issues, they've had an abortion, they're having issues, or they're having postpartum depression. There's something around pregnancy, or they can't get pregnant. So there's support groups for that, really nice support groups for that. And then another one that I get actually a lot is this pornography addiction or sex addicts. So there's a group called Sex Addicts Anonymous. It's a support group and it's wonderful. A lot of people I know have been helped by that. There's many more, but this is just a start. So you have resources, there's many different ones you can check out. Okay? So that's all. I want to say thank you guys. I'm going to be on a little holiday. So I'll see you in a month. We have a little break. So that's also, I wanted to give you all these resources. So you can kind of either review the video classes, the 10 classes we've done, or you can even try to join a group or see a therapist. And we'll start up again on October 21st. Okay? Thank you guys. Yes? Haribol. Yes?
There was one question in the chat. What is the difference between life coach and these professions that you named?
A life coach is not a certified psychologist, a licensed psychologist. So that's a much smaller certification. They don't have the qualification to work with the mind like a psychologist does or a counselor. They're more like, they can help you in, what you want to do with your life, Do you want to do this or do you want to do that? Like some life issue. But they're not going to get deep into your childhood trauma or some scars. They're not qualified to do that. It's more like forward-looking. Okay, what should I do with something? Whereas in psychology, usually you're looking and processing old stuff that's getting in your way. Okay? Thank you guys. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Haribol.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for all participating too. That was fun. Haribol.